Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Mike Force Podcast. So, I'm doing it. We're talking about Epstein. I usually don't talk about big political issues because I just don't like politics, but this is different. And what changed my mind on this one, besides it being a massive man-made disaster, what changed my tune on it was this post on Truth Social, which is ironic, Truth Social, that Trump posted on. I was going to say tweeted, it's posted. That started out with, what's going on with my boys? And in some cases, gals. They're all going after Attorney General Pam Bondi, who's doing a fantastic job, until she screwed this up. And I don't think they're just going after Pam Bondi. I think they're going after you, the President of the United States. And I don't want to see that. But I'm not going to jump on an irrational bandwagon, an illogical bandwagon, because this is the most rational bandwagon to jump on. What are you talking about? This long rant, several paragraphs smashed together in one long run-on sentence, is insane. He says, they created the Epstein files, just like they created the fake Hillary Clinton Christopher Steele dossier. What? What are you talking about? This has never been a left-right issue. This has been an elite versus the people. This has been a predator versus children, a good versus evil. How does Ghislaine Maxwell get 20 years for trafficking 2,500 victims? Because that's how many victims there are. I don't know if they're all children, but 2,500 victims, according to Pam Bondi. Initially said 2,000, but she said it's closer to 2,500. The FBI memo reports it as 500. We're talking 2,500 victims when not one single perpetrator. She's trafficking them. She's moving them to the perpetrator. But not one perpetrator is in prison. Not one perpetrator has been named outside of the name drops, ironically, that Trump started with when he dropped Prince Andrew and Bill Clinton. I mean, that is a huge, significant problem. Now, I will take a breath. A lot of people are conspiring and saying, well, it's because Trump's on the list. No, he's not. If he was, the Democrats would have took advantage of that a long time ago, and they would have used it in both 2016 and the most recent election. That's not the case. I mean, sure, he could be attached in some form or fashion, but for sure the Dems would have used it as ammo, and there potentially was plenty of it, and they didn't. So let's just set that aside. You could believe that all you want, but it's my opinion this goes deeper and darker into the deep state. And I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but it's just common sense here. And I think that's what people want, which is why it is so insane that Bondi, Patel, Bongino, everybody's on the bandwagon like, yeah, there's nothing to see. The 1 minute gap in video? What? The most secure prison in America has a 1 minute gap every single evening, apparently, because they're using 1990s technology and VCR tapes? What? It's not going to be a popular opinion, but I'll tell you, I think that he's still alive. Let's just say from institutional exposure, I'll say that. Here's what I could tell you broadly. Now, this is completely open source. I checked it before I started this podcast. One, America recruits assets to facilitate intelligence that drives operations for national security. Okay, let's just take that. If you have an asset who's worked for America and saved American lives, what do you do with those guys? You protect them. That's part of the deal. I mean, we abandon a lot of our assets and just let them get killed because that's how we roll. We've been doing it since the beginning of the OSS, the Office of Strategic Service, which is what started the CIA and also U.S. Army Special Forces, or the Green Berets. It was the precursor to all of that. But when we look at CIA history, we're very good at abandoning partners. But with the most lucrative in intelligence assets, we protect them at all costs. Even if it means faking a death or a suicide inside of a prison and providing them protection wherever they may be. Witness protection wherever they may be. Why would I say that? Well, there's a couple things that draw me to that conclusion. One, no perpetrators have been named. Two, Maxwell's father was a Mossad asset, an Israeli intelligence asset. Mossad, being like the CIA, recruits assets. They go out, they assess, they recruit, and then they work these people to provide intelligence to them for specific incentives. And then they facilitate their operations, providing them resources, some tangible, money, planes, vehicles. I've seen it all. So Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, was a recruited asset for Mossad. You know how he died? Nobody knows. He magically died on the sea via suspicious circumstances. So she grew up in that environment. Epstein was likely a multinational recruited asset. Now, the reason I think multinational is simple. Well, let's take a step back. Epstein had multiple contacts and networks developed across various genres: government, finances, intel. He, for example, was in contact with CIA Director William Burns, former Israeli Prime Minister Barak, former U.S. President Bill Clinton, British royalty Prince Andrew. How do you develop that network? How do you get a president to just show up to your place and fly them to Epstein Island? Well, it helps if you have connections and intelligence. That's actually the easiest way to do that. So, a compelling argument, especially when you follow the money, because that's how you figure out everything. Just follow the money. A compelling argument for multinational intelligence is he had access and placement wherever he went. He was unobstructed with that access and placement. And some will say, some conspiracy theorists will say, well, it's Trump. He's on the list. That's why they don't want to release it. Not likely. The Dems have had this on their desk, getting the briefs, reading the files for a long time, over 15 years. If they had any ammunition they could use against Trump, they would have did it in 2016 and 2020. They didn't. So could he be tied or attached? For sure. I think there's a story floating out there where he kicked Epstein out of his Mar-a-Lago golf resort club because he was hitting on a young girl and he thought he was a perv. There's also video evidence of Trump calling out, before anybody knew, both Clinton, related to the Epstein Island, and Prince Andrew. So he knew the dirt. If he was directly involved, like Elon tweeted, that would already be out there. I promise you, it wouldn't be that hard to get. So why does Bondi Patel go on Rogan's podcast and essentially lie, and Bongino, which I'm most surprised about, back the administration and back Bondi and the DOJ with not going into details about this? they're protecting somebody or something, or both. The only courses of action I could imagine are that this was a multinational intelligence operation. There are a lot of people involved, and if they blow the lid off this thing, you'll start to realize that the CIA, Mossad, and whoever else was involved completely crapped the bed because they involved children. So we want the truth as the people because it involves perpetrators who are getting away with hurting children. And seemingly, Trump tweets about it like it's this ridiculous conspiracy theory, which is ironic because one of the reasons he got elected was because of the exposure and telling the truth. But then he goes on Truth Social and tells a lie, which is, I'm sick to my stomach over this. And so should you. You should be infuriated that the elites are protecting vile human beings who infiltrated this island to assault children. And then we're told there's nothing to see here, which is BS. No clear origin of Epstein's wealth whatsoever, by the way. He wasn't a manager for a hedge fund, but he had access to one billionaire's money. Apparently, Lex Wexner, the founder of Victoria's Secret. But he had access also to hundreds of millions of dollars. And how? Well, it helps if you're tied to intel. So the patterns of protection and legal leniency, this started in 2008 with a Florida plea deal, which allowed Epstein to serve only 13 months with work release despite credible sex abuse allegations from dozens of underage girls. Okay. The memo also says that he was cooperating with the FBI out of Florida, which allowed him to do this. And several girls recruited were reportedly instructed to bring in other underage girls. So he's running a ring. And Maxwell takes the fall, delivering the children to the perpetrator times 2,500, but no perpetrators in prison. Not even discussed. And they say there's no list. There is a list. I don't care if it's 2 people long. It just wasn't Epstein. I've looked at the FBI evidence pictures, photographs. You know one thing you don't do when you're doing it yourself? You don't keep solid state drives in archives, black binders with names if there's nobody on the list. You're not doing that for yourself. So no connectivity, meaning the technical surveillance they used was used for a specific reason. And it looks, it speaks, it's like, if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. If it looks like an intel op, it's an intel op. What purpose, what task would you have to use solid state drives and archive them and keep black binders with names? Okay, so who are the names? Are they the victims? Well, who are the victims with? You're telling me Epstein is the only one. That's false. We already know it's false because we got people's names already. Gates, Clinton, this Prince Andrew, who's the most ridiculous in this situation because he admitted to it. Other people admitted to it. And they knew he was a creep. He was a perv. But they did nothing about it. The plea deal included non-prosecution for co-conspirators, shielding others from the investigation. Deal was overseen by Alex Acosta, who later said he was told to back off because Epstein belonged to intelligence. How much more clear does it get? When you have access and placement, when you have the ability to blackmail the most powerful people in the world, because you have vile media of them doing things, unspeakable acts that you can't even talk about. According to Pam Bondi, 10,000 unspeakable acts, then you have leverage. And that's the point in intel. Even when you're recruiting an asset and you're working with them, you have to have leverage. You have to hang and dangle something over their head. Honey trap allegations, multiple allegations of hidden cameras in Epstein's properties, especially in his New York City mansion, and the island suggesting entrapment operations. Several girls recruited were reportedly instructed to bring in other underage girls, a classic tactic in blackmail and compromise operations. When you're hanging that over somebody's head and you're saying, look, man, I have something on you, you're screwed, you have leverage. The reports from the staff and the visitors said Epstein recorded powerful guests engaging in illicit act. It's directly from the witnesses that are involved in the case. This isn't speculation. This has been deemed a right-wing conspiracy. It's funny because every story that I'm seeing now is ran by MSNBC, and nobody in the right media is reporting on it. I wonder why. You see, when it comes to children, it's not a right versus left. For most people, especially conservatives, that's a full stop, time out. Like, what are we doing? What's happening? And so I like to see guys like Benny Johnson. I even like to see guys from Turning Point, Tucker, and everybody else jumping on the bandwagon because it's the right thing to do. They're not willing to protect MAGA over children. He had massive real estate deals. In Manhattan, he was gifted by Wexner an unusually structured transaction by being gifted this mansion and owned multiple high-security camera rig properties in strategic locations in Palm Beach, New York City, New Mexico, Paris, and the Virgin Islands. A diversified real estate portfolio. Yeah, was he a creep? For sure. But was he an intelligence asset? Likely. He had connections to science and academia. Epstein cultivated relationships with elite scientists in Harvard and MIT, offering large donations, using influence to host think tank-style meetings, possibly gathering intel on cutting-edge tech. Maybe there's a reason why the administration is so cooperative with the Israelis, facilitating any and all. Need more weapons? We got you. Need security? We got you. Need help with operations? We got you. Now, we've always had a good relationship with the Israelis, but this is different. He funded eugenics-related projects and showed interest in transhumanist theories. In 2019, he died apparently in a cell. The media that was released of the surveillance footage that looks like, it's so funny. I was just talking to Bill Thompson from Spartan Forge, and we were looking at imagery on his app, a hunting app, a great hunting app, where he can get 1 centimeter imagery, not from satellites, from planes flying overhead. So with planes and satellites, we can get the best imagery in the world to literally peek in people's windows. But you're telling me in the most secure prison system in the country, you got a 1-minute gap looking like a Commodore 2000 TV footage? Are you kidding me? From one perspective, by the way. One perspective. My Ring camera from Costco has better imagery than the imagery coming out of that prison system. That 1-minute gap, he was pulled out of his cell and likely moved to an off-site, out-of-country location in witness protection. I don't think he's dead. I think that dude had too big of an ego, too much invested with intelligence organizations. Even as they were prosecuting him, there was already an out because he had leverage. I don't even think he was killed. Those prison guards, if they knew something was going on, you're a prison guard, you make $35,000 to $50,000 a year. You think you're going to not say anything about that? You're going to be on Dateline Everything talking about exactly what you saw for the incentives. How about some money? But if they came in there and rolled this dude up and pulled him out because they told everybody to leave during that 1 minute, it was doctored, by the way, but with Adobe Premiere. It's not hard to see the metadata on the back end when things like that happen. And you think we're dumb? You think we're stupid? You think the American people are stupid? The games of this political nothing to see here ideology is over. And this is not going away. I won't let it. I'll continue to message it. It will not go away until we see perpetrators called out. Call it what it is, if it is that. Hey, because of national security concerns, you should understand this was a multinational intelligence operation. For national security reasons, we can't release this information that's redacted, but we will release this information, which is unredacted. But to come out and say there's nothing to see, to unequivocally, with a straight face, declare that he killed himself during that interview with Bongino and Patel to say to Rogan, you don't think I would say something? I honestly don't think you would say something. Especially if you're told it in matters of national security, there's reasons we can't go into this. You would say that. But you can't tell me with a straight face, where are the perpetrators? Where's the list? I don't care if 1, 2, or 3 people were on it. How is Bill Clinton, who visited that island multiple times, still walking around? Because he's a president? He's above the law? We know that's a thing, by the way. We know these politicians are above the law. Unless you have information that they want, and if you don't cooperate, you don't enable, they'll put you behind bars. And it won't be on headline news. It won't be reported. You'll just go away. You'll just disappear. Apparently, the surveillance cameras failed, which is what we were told initially. Then all of a sudden they said, oh, there is surveillance footage. And then they released it, and then they read the metadata and said it was manipulated. Then the medical examiner ruled it a suicide, but independent pathologists raised concerns about signs more consistent with manual strangulation. I don't think he was choked at all. And they said guards fell asleep or forgot to check on him. Bullcrap. Where's the video of them pulling his body out of the cell? Does that exist? Let me know in the comments if that's a thing. I haven't heard that, but that would be good to see, right? Because then it would confirm at least that his body was in there. What's the aftermath? Well, there's many key files and logs, visitor logs, according to the own FBI report, under Bondi, flight manifest, video recordings, but they were sealed and redacted because they said they wanted to seal and redact the victims. Nobody's asking for abuse material. Nobody's asking for you to release abuse material of children. What people are asking is for justice for these perpetrators who are getting away. That's what we want. So why are you protecting them? Redact all the victims. But you're telling me there's no perpetrators when there's 2,500 victims? BS. There was hundreds of names redacted in lawsuits and case files. No widespread investigation of Epstein's high-profile associates, like Clinton, like Andrew. And again, we're back to the point where we're asking the questions. Journalists go in and they get big white binders that Pam Bondi printed off the paper for the cover sheet that said phase 1 because they were going to be so transparent. They've never been so transparent in their life. And then all of a sudden it's crickets and you're not getting anything and it's end of story. And Trump in a cabinet interview says, why are you asking? Are we still talking about this guy? Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And it won't stop and it won't go away. Guys, I'm headed off to the underground to do a underground episode for both Mike Glover channel on my patreon.com/Mike Glover. That's the uncensored version of this where I talk more details. We'll talk about that this week. Also, I'm doing a side-by-side comparison of different dry goods. I call them dry goods. It's dry food. Dehydrated food, from camp food to things that you put on the shelf that have 25-year shelf lives. Like, what does that taste like? We're going to go into that, and then I have pieces of content that I'm doing based off of my 72-hour disaster bag build, the D-bag. You guys better have D-bags in your homes. I appreciate you guys. I want to get your input. Make sure you subscribe, like if you're on YouTube. If you're on Spotify, make sure you click links for YouTube and vice versa. Subscribe to and get the notifications for new upcoming Mike Force episodes on Spotify or wherever podcasts are found. I want to hear your opinion on this. Till next time, peace out, guys.